Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan, and today we're talking about set-piece takers. So a few of you guys have written in the comments, can you do a video on set-piece takers? We want to know a little bit more info. That's absolutely fine. That's exactly what we're going to do today. So today I'm going to be going through some set-piece takers from every single team in the Premier League. So you have all of the information at your disposal, and it's going to be really awesome. There's going to be everything you could ever need about set-pieces. Now, whilst I don't recommend that you choose a player just purely based on the fact that they take penalties or take free kicks, it is a really nice bonus. So if you're stuck choosing between two players, this is really kind of useful to see, oh, okay, this guy actually takes some free kicks, so maybe he's the slightly better option. Maybe that gives him the edge. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the edge today. So yeah, before we get going, if you are not subscribed already, please do consider subscribing. I know 80% of you who are watching this video right now are not subscribed, and I'm really aiming to hit 20,000 subscribers by game week 1, and I can only do that with your help. I'm so close, so please help me, guys, and become part of the hashtag Team 20% or whatever you want to call it. But let's get on with some set piece takers. That's what we're here for. So let's start off with Arsenal. So we're going to do this alphabetically, completely alphabetically, no favoritism here. So yeah, penalties, Aubameyang. There's not really any doubts that Aubameyang is going to be on penalties, and whilst you could say, well, perhaps Willian will take a penalty, Pepe, if Aubameyang isn't on the pitch, Aubameyang, because he almost always is on the pitch, it's not really relevant. There's not really going to be any opportunities for any of the other guys to take penalties, so it's going to be all about Aubameyang for penalties. And then free kicks, Willian could be kind of interested for free kicks. He got a lot of points last season for Chelsea by scoring free kicks and penalties, but is that going to repeat itself in this season? Of course, he's not taking penalties anymore. He was taking penalties for Chelsea last season, which added a lot to his score by scoring these penalties and scoring these free kicks, and that's sort of what made his score so good. I don't know if he's going to repeat it this season, and of course he's much more expensive now as well, so not massively keen on there, but there's a couple other names in there you might be interested in. Moving on to Aston Villa, penalty taker is going to be Grealish. Wesley might deputise if Grealish isn't on the pitch, but I would never really pick Wesley. Grealish could be a little bit interesting, however. Grealish could be on some free kicks as well, potentially some corners as well, so it might be quite nice. And then Hurahan, he is also taking some free kicks and corners as well. But again, Hurahan is not the kind of player who I would be interested in really for my fantasy team. He's just not really the kind of player who's good for fantasy. So Jack Grealish out of this list, looking not bad though. Brighton, we've got Maupay on the penalties. I don't know, Maupay is a little bit risky for me. I don't think Brighton get a hell of a lot of penalties anyway. Into the corners and free kicks, we were talking about McAllister and Gross. Again, they're not really proper fantasy players, but I don't know, maybe if you're a Brighton fan and you want to take a punt on one of these guys, then I wouldn't completely blame you, to be honest, but I don't think I'll be going there personally. Then into Burnley. Burnley sort of rotate their penalty takers depending on who wins the penalty, so it's really going to be out of Barnes and Woods. If Barnes wins a penalty, he'll take it. If Wood wins a penalty, he'll take it. That's usually how they work it. And then if anyone else wins a penalty, then you really don't know who's going to take it. But it's going to be out of Barnes and Wood. Those are the guys. And then onto the corners and the free kicks. We're sort of talking Westwood and McNeil potentially as well. I'm not so keen on Westwood just because he's a defensive midfielder. McNeil could be interesting, but Burnley don't score a lot of goals really. They're not a particularly attacking team, so I don't know. But Barnes and Wood are typically fairly good choices anyway. I really like the look of Wood, and you know, the idea that he's taking penalties as well is just an added bonus. So do keep an eye on Wood for game week 2 onwards anyway. Next up, Chelsea. Kind of going to be an interesting one because Jorginho is the usual penalty taker, but he's probably not going to be playing as many minutes this season just because there's so many midfield options there at Chelsea. So Werner is going to be the guy, the understudy penalty taker, if you like. So he takes penalties, plenty of penalties in his career, Werner. So he's going to be the main man on penalties. And then on free kicks and corners, again, we've got a new guy in Ziyech, and then potentially Pulisic and Mason Mount there as well for these set pieces. Kind of interesting with Werner and Ziyech on the free kicks as well, because Chelsea typically win a lot of free kicks and a few penalties as well, just because players like Pulisic are so technical, they get brought down around the area, so there is opportunities there. So Ziyech is someone you would really probably want to be looking at in terms of scoring a couple of free kicks and stuff like that, and Werner on penalties as well is a massive bonus, and I like both of those picks if I'm perfectly honest. Crystal Palace is pretty much all about Milivojevic. He takes penalties, he takes free kicks. I remember a couple of seasons ago, Milivojevic was a great option because Palace were getting so many penalties and he was just banging them in game after game. And it was quite fantastic, really. But generally speaking, because of last season, where Palace didn't get so many penalties. That means Milivojevic's score was a lot lower. Crystal Palace have not been a particularly good attacking team, and Milivojevic is a defensive midfielder, so I'm not really too keen on this, if I'm completely honest. But Van Aanholt is there as well if Palace pick it up defensively compared to the end of last season. Van Aanholt could be kind of interesting, I guess. Everton, it has Gylfi Sigurdsson written all over it for penalties and free kicks and corners as well. He's sort of well known for it, isn't he? So yeah, here's the guy I would be expecting to take pretty much everything. Dino as well is a little bit more interesting because Sigurdsson can be a little bit disappointing. Dino, on the other hand, because he's a defender, you've got the extra points if he scores those free kicks. So yeah, he's a really nice one to look out for if Everton can start getting some clean sheets. Fulham now, and Mitrovic is the man we're looking at for penalties. I don't think that will surprise too many people, but what might surprise you is Mitrovic takes a few direct free kicks as well, which is quite nice. The other guys taking free kicks are sort of Cabano, Knockaert. For corners, it's going to be Knockaert and Brian. I know many of you will have seen Brian score a free kick in that playoff final, but that's not a usual thing. Usually Brian takes the long-range free kicks that are sort of indirect, that are sort of like more like crosses, I guess, rather than the direct free kicks going for goal. That's usually what happens. So if you're picking up Brian, don't do it thinking that he's going to be taking and scoring free kicks all the time, because that just isn't what happens, and it's not what's going to happen. Next up, we're going to Leeds, and the man, apparently he's a great penalty taker, is Click. But he's a really good penalty taker, so he's going to be taking those penalties, and Bamford might deputise for him there as well if Click isn't on the pitch. Going into free kicks, and we're talking about Phillips, really. I've got Douglas here as well, but I don't know how many minutes Douglas gets. Hernandez, don't know how many minutes he gets. Phillips, though, he's going to be in the team every single week. Although he's a defensive midfielder, he doesn't really get many attacking contributions, but you know, if he's taking corners and free kicks, I don't know. Depending on how many of these Leeds get and how good Phillips is at that level taking free kicks, we'll have to wait and see there. But I will not be going near it right now anyway. Next up, Leicester, and we've got Jamie Vardy. Pretty obvious penalty taker. If Vardy's not on the pitch, it goes to sort of Perez or Maddison, really. Maddison is sort of the set-piece specialist, though, if you like. He's taking the free kicks and corners. He did some really good stuff with free kicks and corners earlier on in the season, last season. But sort of second half of the season, he completely dropped off and didn't really get anything. But there's still a player there. I'm still wary of Maddison, but, you know, he's a fairly good free kick taker, a set-piece taker in general. So he could pick up some points that way. But I'd like to see him pick up points in open play first before I start thinking about investing in him. So on to Liverpool now, and we know it's Salah, isn't it, on the penalties. Unless Milner's playing, then it's Milner. But Salah is the main guy taking the penalties, and that's sort of what gives him the edge over Mane. With his free kicks as well, Salah takes free kicks as well, and potentially even corners. So that's why Salah does have the edge over Mane in that respect. And then sort of free kicks, again, Trent Alexander-Arnold, why he has the edge over Robertson is because he's taking free kicks and corners. But the direct free kicks is what's interesting for Alexander-Arnold, because when a very good free kick taker is also a defender, you know, 6 points for every goal a defender scores. So, you know, Alexander-Arnold will take and will score free kicks, so that's going to be really interesting. He's going to be picking up loads of points, and he's just going to absolutely blow it apart. He's going to be the top scoring defender, so I can't see a team without him personally. He offers so much, Alexander-Arnold, and set pieces is one of the strings to his bow, so really interesting. Manchester City now, and De Bruyne / Aguero seem to be the players who are going to be taking the free kicks. I don't know if there's any concrete penalty taker at Manchester City right now, but De Bruyne and Aguero are going to be the guys. When Aguero's injured, you know, it's going to be De Bruyne. When Aguero's back, I don't know. Well, Aguero, I guess, is back, but I'm not sure. I don't know who's going to be taking the penalties, but it's going to be between those two. That's what I can tell you for sure. So De Bruyne is going to be interesting for the free kicks and the corners as well. So, you know, he's a great player outside of the set pieces, but he also has the bonus of set pieces. And then Mahrez as well will be on some of those set pieces, free kicks and corners and the like as well. Manchester United, and there was a little bit of an argument, is it going to be Bruno Fernandes or Rashford as the main penalty taker? I think Fernandes is pretty much established as the main penalty taker, though Rashford we expect will get a few as well. If those aren't on the pitch, then Pogba, Martial is sort of the players we're looking to. But yeah, mainly Fernandes and Rashford. Fernandes and Rashford also on free kicks potentially, and Fernandes also on those corners. So Fernandes is the main guy here, as well as being a great player. He's also on all of these set pieces, and that's what we like. We like a player who has all of the set pieces. That makes it actually quite something that we look for, really. Moving on to Newcastle, we've got Richie as the main set-piece guy, I guess, with Shelvey as well there. Richie taking penalties though, but how many minutes will Richie play? Will he play? I'm not sure. There's talk about him moving on, so yeah, I'm not sure about that. But Almiron, he's the sort of backup penalty taker, so if Richie is not playing or if he does move on, then it's going to be Almiron that we'll be looking at for the penalties at least. Sheffield United, and it's all about Norwood, basically. Fleck could take some free kicks and corners as well, but Norwood is the main guy. But just because he's a defensive midfielder in a defensive team, he's not really going to offer much other than these set pieces. And I don't know, does Sheffield United score that many penalties and free kicks? Not from what I've seen, so yeah, not too interested in that one. Southampton is something I really like, and I've spoken a lot about James Ward-Prowse and how much I like James Ward-Prowse as a fantasy Premier League asset. And one of the reasons is that he's pretty much got set pieces on lock. Free kicks, all corners, and penalties up until late last season, where Ings took a couple of penalties just because Ings was chasing the golden boot. So I don't know if that's the reason why Ings was taking penalties, because he was chasing the golden boot, and now it's going to go back to Ward-Prowse. But that's how I'd normally think. But because looking at the friendlies that Southampton have played so far, sort of Ward-Prowse has taken some penalties, Ings has taken some other penalties. So I don't know if there's been a decided penalty taker yet. Maybe Ward-Prowse and Ings are going to be sharing responsibility. But I would certainly say that Ward-Prowse is the main penalty guy, and he's 100% definitely the main set-piece guy. So one of the many reasons I really like James Ward-Prowse, just because he has all of those set pieces on lock and he's good at them as well. So, Tottenham Hotspur, Kane's the guy on the penalties. We know that. We really do know that. If Kane's not on the pitch, then I guess Son takes him. But Kane, he scores a good amount of penalties, kind of like Bruno Fernandes does. He's a guy that picks up a lot of his points through penalties. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I guess Son and Lo Celso are also going to be joining Kane on the direct free kicks. And then Son and Lo Celso are the guys on the corners there as well. West Bromwich Albion and Austin. Charlie Austin, he's the guy on the penalties. Zahore could potentially take some penalties as well, but it's going to be mainly about Charlie Austin. Pereira and Phillips, Matt Phillips, the winger Phillips, are the guys taking the free kicks and corners. So Pereira, we're hearing a lot about. A lot of people really rating him. I'm not quite ready to step up and invest in West Brom yet, because I do want to see how they get on. I don't have massive faith in them. And speaking to West Brom fans, a lot of them are not completely convinced by West Brom's chances in the Premier League either. So I'll wait and see for me. For West Ham now, and got another slightly interesting one, because Noble has just always been the main penalty taker, but then sort of towards the end of last season, Antonio sort of take a penalty, and it was sort of like, why is Antonio taking a penalty? Antonio wasn't chasing the golden boot or anything like that. Noble was on the pitch whilst Antonio took the penalty, so it's sort of like, is this a changing of the guard? Is Antonio the new penalty taker? I'm not sure. Noble has had the penalties for so long, that I guess he just keeps it. But Antonio, I guess, could potentially get a few penalties as well. Let's see what happens there. Let's see how much Noble plays, I guess. And then Creswell, Bowen, Lanzini, free kick takers, and then Snodgrass and Bowen I've got them written down here for the corners. But I guess Lanzini's not really going to be playing very much, I don't think. But maybe he will. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, he didn't play very much last season, so I'm not seeing him as the main sort of guy for free kicks and corners. And then finally, we've got Wolverhampton Wanderers, and the main guy taking the penalties is Jimenez. Interestingly about Jimenez taking penalties is at the end of last season, he sort of went off form a little bit. He went really off form and sort of looked a little bit awkward. And then he got a penalty and he scored the penalty, and suddenly he sort of gained a bit of confidence back, I guess, and then started scoring a few goals, which is really, really nice to see when, just the fact that a player has penalties and takes penalties has the ability to give them their confidence back and continue to score goals, break their duck, if you like. That's the phrase that we use. So, yeah, that's really interesting, and that sort of, I guess that applies to everyone, and that's just a little parable, I guess, analogy from what Jimenez did at the end of last season. Neves and Moutinho are the other guys to look at. So Neves could be taking penalties potentially. Neves and Moutinho, the guys who are going to be taking free kicks and corners. Neto as well could be taking some corners as well. Moutinho is sort of, I don't know, just because he plays a little bit deep, he doesn't get too many attacking contributions. I think money can be better spent elsewhere. Same with Neves, even though they are taking a couple of free kicks, it's not really worth investing in them. But Jimenez is nice that he takes a penalty. So there we have it. Those are all the teams. God, I am out of breath. I have spoken about I've never spoken about so many teams and players all in one video. I tell you that for free. Hope you did enjoy this. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you are new around here, as I say, please do consider subscribing to the channel, and we can hopefully get 20,000 subscribers by Game Week 1. That would be so awesome. awesome if that could happen. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out the description for my Instagram, Twitter, mini league code, Patreon, if you want to support me on Patreon, it's all in the description. Go check it out, please. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. I really hope to see you on the next one, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.